all these assessments. So when a government care for people, they do the first thing is the study. And because they didn't do the study, they didn't care for the people of Anguilla. So this government is facing the hammer. Is what is taking place. It's a shame. If you're doing a whole study for the people of Sandy Ground, you're the first who would have a meeting with Sandy Ground. Like, you know why I'm talking about Sandy Ground? I have family in Sandy Ground. The first meeting they had in Sandy Ground, you know what they discussed? Was the wharf. They came to Sandy Ground and discussed the wharf. But they did not discuss what they were planning to do with the people in Sandy Ground. It was hiding that. You didn't even get a tip that this would have taken place. So all the people who is here tonight in from Sandy Ground, they didn't even know what was behind their back. So it's a shame to say that everybody is coming here tonight to discuss the issues of this. This government didn't have to face this. It's a shame. They discuss the matter behind everybody's back. So all this assessment and all this and that should have done it already before. So what is happening here? We have to say the thing went wrong. So why this government had to pick up things when it went wrong? All the assessment was happening. Look at a brother who spoke about Sandy Ground. He is working in environmental health. And how come he didn't know about it? This was a secret because the former administration hide in the dark because if when they hide in the dark, they don't form the government and drop it in the people's lap. Good night.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Kirkpatrick and I live in Sandy Ground. My great-great-great-grandparents have lived in Sandy Ground since the 1800s, and our place is our legacy. Sandy Ground is our legacy. Tonight you've just been talking about the pond. But when you read the Memorandum of Understanding, it talks about real estate, high-rise villas on the beach, oceanfront. Where is that going to be? And what access will the Sandy Ground residents have? That is one of the things. Another thing is the pond. If you're going to be dredging and building for 2 to 3 years, somewhere I've heard that we need to leave Sandy Ground for 2 to 3 years in order to have this proposal completed, this project completed. Who's going to pay for us to be out of town for 3 years? And where do we go? Another thing, with all of the residences and the high-rises and the yachts and the things, you're going to need more roads in and out of Sandy Ground. You can think of the congestion. Who is going to pay for roads up to North Hill, up to South Hill, back up to Sandy Ground? There's going to be if there was a tsunami, where there would be unforgettable. Anyway, those are just my thoughts, and if we could have some answers to especially the oceanfront beach access, and will residents have a proper access to enjoy the beach?
That's an excellent question. And the plan is, from when I talk to the developers, there will be full access to the beach. The ocean front villas will be on the western side of the pond. So the Sandy Ground community will be between those and the sea. There will be, nobody has to leave Sandy Ground. And what was your other question? And the roads, and they will do the roads. And improve parking. And there will be no blockage of August Monday activities and things like that, which has been proposed. That is certainly not, they will not be taking over the road bay itself. The only place that they will have control over is the entry channel into the marina. Yes. I know somebody is talking about the red line in Exhibit 4. It specifically states that they will have access, they will need free access to the entry channel, which will be how the ships get in. It talks about the government of Anguilla and them, about the number of moorings that there would be. But there's nothing there that they're controlling the road bay from point to point.
Excuse me. My name is Dwight Chisen. I live here in Anguilla and Little Harbor. Closer. My name is Dwight Chisen. I live here in Anguilla and Little Harbor. I've been here for 25 years. I'm an architect, engineer, and I have been involved in construction all my life. I came here tonight hoping I would see some plans, some proposal, and I'm looking at this empty room. How do you have a community meeting about something so important where you don't even have the basics of the first plan? Now, with all the things that I've heard, this is the way news travels in Anguilla. It's rumor. It's gossip. Now, I heard that just from you this evening that there's going to be over a 300-foot ship that's going to come in as part of this proposal. It's not going to come into the salt pond.
I said 250.
Oh, 250.
Yeah.
250.
Mr. West said 300 and something.
Okay. A 250-foot ship takes what draft? And what amount of clearance does it have to have for the draft? Because there's a safety factor. What is the bridge going to look like that's going to block off the channel when it's not being used? How high is it going to be? How is that going to affect the community? These are major issues. These are not little issues. And if you don't have a company who's putting their best foot forward by showing you they're so convinced that this is a workable solution to give you some plans to talk about, I would say this is just a real estate play. And the general thing you will find with real estate plays, is that once they've got a signature on a contract, you don't have any leverage any longer, because they'll want to do what they want to do. And they'll slow it down, they'll speed it up. And I don't think it's fair for the people of Sandy Ground, even though it's a small village, but it's a major destination for a lot of tourists and local people who live there. They should have to guess at what the future holds for them. I think before this goes any further, the corporations that are well hidden from all Anguillans, they should present some plans to show us what their best intentions are. Because quite honestly, if you want to have a nice marina, extend the end of the North Hill mound, extend it out about 300 feet with fill, heavy rocks, and make a curved breakwater, and have that done by proper engineers who will then respect how the currents will work in the main bay. But to think that we're going to do all this in that little bay without any plans, I think it's a poor reason to have this meeting.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to say that very good presentation. They do have plans, but again, tonight's...
Good evening. My name is Didier. It's very funny because I see all of you guys. I don't see so many young people here, and everybody's talking about the personal problem about Sunday ground. Of course, I want a marina in Anguilla. I don't mind about Sunday ground or Corito or anywhere in the world, in Anguilla, I mean. But it's so funny when you talk about 350 feet yacht by Mr. West or 250 by the other side anyway. I don't understand. Everybody, the road, we don't care about the road. What do we want in Anguilla? I'm going to be very short. What do we want in Anguilla? We want to develop the business in Anguilla. And do you think that your young people here, I don't see so many young people here. Oh yeah, you're 22, that's good. Okay, good. But what do we want? You think these people are going to pick up the salt and grow corn and go and be a farmer? No, we teach them how the tourism business is today. So, you know, everybody, I think, is making my English is very poor, I'm sorry. Some advice about my house and my toilets going to flash overhead by the marina. So I'm sure that all of that has been expert by international expert, and if Sunday ground has been chosen, nobody choose Sunday ground, okay? So that's what I want to say, and vive the marina. Thank you.
Be brief and short, Clay. Be brief, okay?
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. I am Elder Clive C. Smith from East. And I am very concerned. And I have been listening all the time to people and respecting their views, ideas, and opinions. I believe this is the democratic process, and we are going fine. Thank you. Thank you. So the first thing I want to say here this evening, is this. I would like very much to congratulate the government of Anguilla that has been legally and lawfully and wonderfully elected by the people of Anguilla, and our Premier for the wonderful stand that you all have taken. You have taken a brilliant and wonderful stand for Anguilla, and that is, there is this proposal of development for Anguilla that we need. We need development in Anguilla. And you said you will have the assessment and all that has to be done. And if it proves that this is workable and will be good for the people that are living in the area, and it would be no harm and danger to Anguilla, but would bring the much needed development and work for the people of Anguilla, then we will go ahead with it. So I want to say this. Our problem, we in Anguilla have a very serious problem. We operate in a way like this. Whenever a development comes to Anguilla, we have 15,000 engineers. You understand? 15,000 engineers. And we have to listen to the 15,000 engineers before we can move forward with a project for the people of Anguilla. At the same time, we have 15,000 people who are saying, we want work for our people. We want to pay our bills. We want to do all these things. And we are not willing to sacrifice anything to get it. But what we think we're going to do, is sit by, and the British government is going to give us what we need to run Anguilla, what we need to develop Anguilla. The British government going to give it to us. And at the same time, we are saying we don't even want the British governor here. We don't want nobody here. How are we going to get this? I'm going to close now by telling you this. I am told that the governor that we have here is going. And I want everybody to know that Elder Clive C. Smith told you all that the next governor that is coming here, he is coming here on business for the British government. And the governor that is here now, God rest and bless him. God keep him alive, he and his family. He has been working wonderfully for the people of Angola. And I'm thankful that the people of this government has come to themselves and realized that we had a wonderful governor. And he is still working. But listen to the point now. The other one,
thank you.
The other one that is coming, he is going to work for the people of the British government.
Brother Clive.
And I'm going to finish right now. And when he tells us, when we tell him that we cannot use our land to bring a development for our people because of birds and because of carnival.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, remember the Premier said everyone have... Thank you, sir.
I do want to make a comment before we move on. I am very much aware that we campaigned heavily against Marina in Sandy Ground. And however, wait, 1 second, we are still a team. So if one of us campaigned against it, we all campaigned against it. And we all have the responsibility. Can I speak without being interrupted? One of the things that we have to be mindful of is when we campaigned heavily against this marina, just like you, none of us was aware that there was even a formal conversation being had. We spoke about the concept of a marina in Sandy Ground. When we came into office, we found that not only was a conversation being had, but it was being had for multiple years. But in that, we also have a responsibility. Because when we also got in, there was a great financial deficit. It still exists. Before COVID and worsened as a result of COVID-19. And so as a government, we have to be responsible.
Thank you.
Because we can't just say no without first looking at the facts. We have to be accountable to the Anguillians who want the marina and the Anguillians who do not want the marina. It is what governments are supposed to do. And so now it has gone really far beyond whether we want it or not. It is in front of us. It was signed definitively. There are monetary costs associated with making back steps. And so we have to look at what the environmental and social impact analysis says. But I want to further continue that because I too felt like Mr. Carty. Where are we here? Why are we here having this conversation if we don't have a decision that's formally made? And the reality is that the conversations we have here in the different consultations, the one that we had prior to in October 9th, I believe, we are understanding what the concerns of the people of Angola, and particularly the people of Sandy Ground, are. And so when we have an environmental assessment in front, before we even have an environmental assessment, we have to create the terms of reference. And these conversations inform those actions. We get to know what the people of Angola are concerned about, what they're looking for, what they want, what they don't want. And the benefit of having those assessments is that an environmental assessment and a social assessment looks at the cultural impact, the aesthetic impact, the archaeological and historical impact. Environment looks at whether our beaches will disappear if we decide to cut this a channel into our waters. It looks at what happens when we drench a pond. And not only does it do that, it also shows ways we can mitigate certain impacts. So once we have this in front of us, not only will we realize what certain concerns are, but we'll also have the benefit of saying, how do you remedy these concerns? And that's if they can be remedied. And our responsibility to the people of Anguilla is to look at that. So if we come back and say, based on what we saw, there is no marina that will be happening in Sand Ground, we have the benefit of saying that we made an informed decision that for the people of Anguilla today and the generations to come, that we safeguarded the pond. If it is that a lot of the concerns that we have are not what we really think they are, if it is that the concern of certain toxins from the pond, maybe it doesn't exist or it can be mitigated, we also have the right to explore that to see if it is real. And so, Mr. Carty, the reason why we are here today, this evening, is to have these conversations to inform our actions. Because it won't only happen that we have these consultations and you never hear from us again. You too will have an opportunity to understand what the social impact assessment says and how we can mitigate those risks for your family, the culture of Sand Ground, and the future of the people of Sand Ground. You too will have an opportunity to look at the environmental assessment because that is what it's supposed to do. You are supposed to have the ability to say that we, the people of Sand Ground, were concerned before we read this document and we're no longer concerned. Or we were concerned and we have further concerns now that we see this. But we can't just say, because of our personal thoughts of it, because I'm sitting here in front of you, neither here nor there for the marina, to be honest. But we have to have the facts in front of us. And that's why we keep repeating the need of having an environmental and social impact analysis. I think this would be much more informative if we have the conversations about what our actual fears are. What do we not want to see? What based on our historical experience, what happened in the past, and what do we want to mitigate against? And it's not that I am saying that you don't have a right to disagree with it. I'm saying that we all as a country have a right to understand what our collective fears and concerns are and go through the process together. So if there is no marina, we can say as a country we did the work, and if there is a marina, even if some persons may be opposed against, have oppositions to it, we can say as a country we did the work.
Good night. Thanks. I'm Jamie Hodge. I'm not a resident of Sand Ground, I'm sorry. And I'm also a young man. But I want to first say thank you to the APM team for the opportunity to be at this consultation. I want to also say this. For me, I almost feel as if it's pointless sitting in this meeting because for me, I really want to see the assessment first before I can draw a conclusion to my concerns are. Yes, I've read the document. I understand there's a lot of things in the document. And please don't ever get me wrong. I understand Sand Ground's opinions and the concerns. But for right now, my biggest concern is to see what that assessment says. That assessment determines if we actually have an argument or we don't have an argument. No, at the same time, no, I understand. No, I understand, Will. And I don't plan to be long. Trust me, I don't plan to be long. It's just my first thing, right? That's my first thing. The next thing is that I understand the position of the government. I understand that Lorenzo actually mentioned that the Anguillan people has to then, with this consultation, were for the Anguillan people. No, it's difficult for me to look at the crowd and not see the overwhelming amount of Sand Ground support, which I appreciate. But then we have to ask a question. With the Angolan support in Standing Ground, will Angola also support the Standing Ground motion to say no Marina? And how the government actually assess to say they have the large percentage of Angola people to say they are or are not for the Marina? That's what the concern really is. Because as it stands right now, if, Lorenzo, if I'm correct, you're telling me that you want to have the position of the Angolan people. So how are you going to draw the attention and say the Standing Ground population that you have the Angolan people at heart? We're going to have 50 plus 1, or we're going to have Standing Ground? That's going to be the real concern. So even though we can have consultation after consultation after consultation, it's still going to have to go to two main things. One, what is the assessment going to say to have the government to give a more informed position of are they for, are they against? Right now, I don't think they actually have a position at this point in time. Right? And then the next step is that how is the government going to determine on the large 15,000 people Angola has that the Angolan population are for or against? I've watched the Facebook comments. Some people are for, some people are against. And I really can't tell the 50 plus 1. So, to be honest, I think the first step is let the government get the assessment. Then, after the assessment, I think it's going to fear. And I trust that they're going to come back with an assessment. I trust they're going to come back and say something. Please. I trust that. Right? And if I'm wrong, Lorenzo, you can tell me you're a trustworthy guy, right? So I trust that. And I think everybody here will possibly trust that too. I'm sorry. But the next thing is that however we're going to look at it, Miss West, however you look at it, let's look at it this way. Are you going to trust that the government's going to say, or anyone's going to say, that they have Angola 50 plus 1 over Standing Ground? As I heard somewhere along the road that it's only about 77 votes, right? To actually side with you. That's going to be the concern. Right now, your concern is valid. I've heard you. I've heard Romel, my good friend. I've heard Eddie, my next good friend. I've heard the position of almost everyone here, right? And the Radio on the Airways. But let's just be honest. Consultation first, they're doing it. Commendable. Let's say thank you. Let's say thank you, right? Then next step is that they're going to have to say, come back with us and say, we have the assessment. Let's again, when that stage comes, let's start off by first saying thank you too. That is a good thing, but right now, these are the questions that I think we should have, right? But anyway, I don't want to be long, right? But I'm going to just say thanks again, and hopefully I'll get a consultation when it comes to that time.
Good night to everybody. I had initially promised that I won't be saying anything, but I'm here. And one of the things that I would like to say, as respectfully as possible, is that we need to be respectful to each other. And when persons are speaking, we should allow them to speak. And if you have something to say, raise your hand, and the mic will come over to you, and you will get the mic. But the disrespect by talking over people and shouting over people, whether or not you disagree or agree with them, it is not where we want to be. That is not why we're here, right? We are here because we promised the people of Angola when we were in election campaign that on every issue, we will come to you. We are here because we said we will be transparent and we will be accountable to the people of Angola. None of us knew that there was a definitive agreement for Marina and Standing Ground. None of us knew. And even after a week of being in office, we did not know. And I was told by someone on the street, what are you going to do about that mega yacht Marina and Standing Ground? I said, there's no yacht Marina and Standing Ground. He said, well, there's an agreement. And I said, no, there can't be an agreement. But on inquiry, I found out that there was a definitive agreement for mega yacht Marina in Standing Ground. And one of the first people I spoke to about it was the honorable member, former member for Road North, Mr. Edison Beard. And when I heard about it, I was really surprised, and I asked to see it, and I started to read through it, what have you. And I said, we need to go to the people with this. And the conversation started. So we are not here tonight to determine whether or not a marina goes into Sanagron or anywhere else. We are here because we said we will have this conversation before, during, and after. And that's why we're here. There will always be people for and people against, and people have heard my position. But I want to also say this. In my 49 years of life, I have never seen any foreign direct investment project in Anguilla that the people of Anguilla agreed to. Not one. And I challenge anybody to prove me different. I have never seen any foreign direct investment project for Anguilla that the people of Anguilla agreed to. And that goes to Cap Juluca, that goes to Maliohana, that goes to the Cuisinart Resort and Spa, that goes to the Four Seasons, formerly Viceroy Barnes Bay Development, that goes to Flag, that goes to the Reef, it goes to Zeme Beach, and I can go on and on and on. And again, I just want to say, because I won't have anything else to say about this, this isn't a yes or no vote. This is a conversation. A conversation, and there's a lot that none of us in this room knows. There's a lot that we don't know. But we're having that conversation, and we will continue to have that conversation. But I just want everyone in this room, regardless of your view and your opinion, to be just respectful to the person who is speaking at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. Quincy, thank you very much. You're enlightened. Hayden. The real reason why we're here is because, and I'll be happy to be the first person to point it out, is because the definitive agreement is a preliminary document. That's why we're here. If it were a contract, we'd be somewhere perhaps writing. Yes. It is a preliminary document that encourages this discourse. First and foremost, the people must have their say. That's all that's happening. We are so far ahead of ourselves, it's unbelievable. Preliminary document. We will get to the part where the people says no. Rightfully so, if EIA, if business, if engineering, whatever the case may be. So we are so far ahead of ourselves, and I think government should clarify that. I think government needs to let the people know it is a preliminary document, not a contract. Let me finish. Just one question. From my reading of the agreement, government has not promised any deliverables in terms of private lands, has it? Government, as per the agreement, has not promised any deliverables in terms of private lands. There's no guarantee in the agreement. Correct? So, let me finish. There's none. A contract would have cleared that up. Government would have said that we shall deliver as per any good contract that any developer would hold the government's feet to the fire. It doesn't say that. In other words, ingress and egress is not guaranteed. The government has said that it will assist to the best of its ability So the point that I'm trying to make is that we're so far ahead of ourselves. And I won't go any further because I think it puts government in a spot and it puts us, the people, in a spot. But I've always said, you know, we are one in this room. We're not divided. We might have disagreements. But I always beg for clarity, and I always beg for honesty and integrity because it lets the people make proper decisions. I don't think anybody in this room from Sandy Ground dislikes Anguilla so much that it will prevent the rest of us from moving ahead. All we want is the truth. That's all we want, so that we can make informed decisions, not only for us, but for the rest of our people. It's a preliminary document. The discussion has only now started. Well, government is in a position to speak to that. They're right there in front of you. Okay? So this document has numerous provisos that have to be met in order for the project to go ahead. We haven't started the fight yet. As a matter of fact, we might be stopping something good from happening at this phase, or we might be stopping something bad from happening at this phase. But the fact is that we don't know. I believe that every single opinion in this room is a result of probably 10 people reading a document, 10 people having different opinions and talking to everybody else, and then everybody else. I'd love a show of hands of the people who've actually read the document. Let me finish. Again. I'm Anguillian. I'm Anguillian. And I support whichever government is elected. And I have a significant amount of respect for every one of these people here across the table. But we are here because it has not been made abundantly clear. Will, he said, why are we here? Well, we are here because it's a preliminary document. We're just starting this course. We ain't get down to the nitty-gritty yet. We don't know nothing about EIA. We don't know nothing about business. We don't know nothing about the environment. There's a whole host of things that have to come. Right? So we're nitpicking points, but we're not getting close to the bone as yet. Not yet. Okay? Sandy Ground people, these are the people who are going to be most affected. Level with them. That's all they want. They don't want here, we can't go here and we can't go here because it's unfortunate. That's politics. We don't need that. These people are good people. They just want to be leveled with. Because the truth is, we all know that questions go back and forth and nobody can be definitive about a definitive agreement because it is just a definitive agreement. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to maybe add to what the parliamentary secretary said a little earlier. For the government of Anguilla, this is an information sharing session. Just as the October 19th session that we had down in Sandy Ground, that would have been a moment when we would have been enlightened to a lot of the views of the Sandy Ground community, and to be honest, for the first time in some regards. And those are the concerns that we need to hear. Those are the things that we need to know so that we can make informed decisions. And this is these consultations, the material from these consultations is what we will use in our further discussions, whatever we're doing going forward. This is what informs those discussions. We are not sitting here to say that we are the experts on marina development. We're not claiming to be. But we are here because we need to understand the concerns of the people because that is who we are here to represent. I also wanted to, I know that there's a lot of how to say, I don't say misunderstanding, but the definitive agreement, there's a lot of back and forth about what it means. When we had discussions earlier, we would have seen that MOU was signed in 2019 for the Sandy Ground Marina. 2019, the definitive, 2019. 2019, an MOU was signed. Yeah, May of 2019, an MOU was signed for the Sandy Ground Marina development. In 2020, a definitive agreement was signed. Those are two different documents. Those are two different documents. Now, when we're talking about what is the government's hands are tied, etc., we're talking about there are clauses in that agreement that bind the government. There are clauses that speak to the government having to bear the financial costs of any reversals. And those are important clauses for us to discuss, because that means that there is a financial cost on the table, and we have to determine how is that dealt with. So that is just, it's not, this is a matter of us trying to, as completely as possible, understanding the situation as it lies before us. We're not trying to push anything down anyone's throats. The definitive agreement? It's published and it's made.
It has been published.
Like, for example, thank you, overrule it. Like, one of the things that, a couple things brought my attention, maybe concerning. One was that they agree they won't build permanent housing for their workers, which means, okay, so you could build temporary housing for your workers. And, what with it, Viceroy, what they brought in snails, frogs, and cheap labor. So I think part of that transparency is going back to them and really going through that agreement that your predecessors signed and said, wait a minute, let's talk about this. Are these really going to be creating jobs? And there's other opportunities that you could probably barter. Like if it falls through, say, well, how about some of these, beautiful dreams that were built and are gone, like Arawak or Mariners or the Yacht Club or there's several other properties that came in and never went anywhere, or died. So maybe there's opportunities there. I understand there were like 5 sites. Do you know why they selected Sandy Ground? And what is the backup plan if the environmental and assessment goes down? Are they going to reevaluate the other sites, which may be more suitable? Yeah, so these are things that kind of add, because when I saw that we won't build permanent housing, I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. Cheap labor.
My name is Michael Taylor. I'm in Little Harbor. We've been here for decades, and we're very pleased to be appreciative guests on your island. We've been here for decades. As I say, we're belongers. Good evening, Dr. Webster, Mr. Hughes. At any rate, where the marina may or may not go is not the issue that I'm here to discuss. I'm an attorney by education, but I've made a comfortable living, and I've been able to enjoy your wonderful island for decades because I'm a developer. It's what I do. I develop real estate. This is an issue that cries for a consultant that knows this unusual type of development. I've developed fairly large pieces of land tracts, apartment complexes, shopping centers, but I wouldn't stick my finger near a discussion about a marina because I have no experience in that. Few people in the world do. You need, again, where or if a marina comes in is not an issue that I care to face. This is a decision of the people and the government. But you need expert opinion, and with all due respect, and I certainly don't mean to demean the intelligence of anybody, but this is a field that only a few people in the world are competent in. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and I'll make an analogy that you'll have no knowledge of, ski slopes. Ski slopes. They don't make their money by selling tickets to go skiing. They don't make their money by renting equipment. They make their money on real estate. They build and sell real estate. They build and lease real estate. You cannot run a resort marina, a resort ski slope on income produced from selling gas or renting out a mooring. You make your money on selling real estate or building a large community of rental properties, and that has to be maintained. The problem will occur is when the real estate is sold and the money is taken, and these people, whomever they are, abscond. So the third thing, I'm suggesting three things. You need a consultant, you need to pay attention to the real estate, and you need an irrevocable bond. And it has to be a long-term bond. And I strongly suggest that, and let me just backtrack a minute, MOI is what an LOI is where we are, letter of intent. And it's only subject to the final contract. I heard for the first time that there may have been a final contract. If there has been merely an MOU, it is non-binding. It's an agreement to, in good faith, interact and discuss. If you've signed a final contract, then you have less opportunities. However, with a change in government, those opportunities exist in law. So, having said that, I strongly suggest that any work that's made to follow anything to come should be paid for by the developer, and not as a condition of them getting the license, of getting the go-ahead, but it's a condition of them having the opportunity. And if they don't have those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of US dollars to handle all of this consulting work on the dredging, on the disposal, on the all the other impacts, if they don't have that kind of money, it's called jacket and tie money. It's only what you have to play to get in the door. This is few hundreds of thousands, maybe $1 million or two, which is nothing on a multi-billion-dollar deal. Thank you.
Hello.
Dr. Webster.
My turn.
This is a definitive agreement. Hello, Dr. Webster. This is a definitive agreement. I'm just trying to understand all of this. So you're saying that your hands are tied, you have to go forward with this agreement? We're saying it's a definitive agreement, but are your hands tied that you have to go forward with this agreement?
Well, the preliminary agreement would have been the MOU that was signed in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the preliminary document.
Mm-hmm.
The definitive agreement, and there's a reason why they titled it definitive because they wanted to give themselves a surety that this is a final document. So when we say our hands are tied, the step to ensure that we are protecting the interests of the Anguillians is making sure that we have a properly executed environmental impact assessment and social impact assessment. That's the trigger to the conversation as to whether or not we're going forward or not. That is a part of the definitive agreement.
So you also mentioned that there's money. So let's take it really down low. So if you don't go forward with this agreement,
Not with the,
then you will have to pay the investor, the developer.
we don't have the figure.
Pardon me?
So how it is calculated is that it's whatever that they've incurred. So for example, can I have your attention please? So for example, if as a result of the definitive agreement, this company felt confident that they were moving forward and they incurred certain costs, you said, bring it down simple. For example, after the sign of the definitive agreement, they decide they're going to buy this building because they need to house this new operation. These are different costs that there was a legitimate expectation that a certain movement would be made pending the outcome of an EIA or SIA. So there is not, for example, in that definitive agreement that if you break this contract, that the cost is $17 or $17 million. It's the costs that are incurred after the signing as a result of the expectation of the signing. I thought that was explained properly.
I'm still confused because I'm saying Ms. Kentish said that there was some cost that would be incurred. So I'm saying then there's work already going on there as per this agreement?
If they decided to hire a consultant.
So the government will have to pay that consultant?
No. If the government just decides up and say no marina for no reason, there is a chance that the government will have to pay that cost.
There is a chance.
So the cost,
I'm still confused.
Okay, I understand confusion because there's no figure in the definitive agreement that says this is the figure the government of Angola has to pay if this marina doesn't go ahead. That being said, there are still costs that the developer may incur, which by the terms, or they have already incurred, which by the terms of the definitive agreement, they can say that the government of Anguilla is responsible for the payment of those costs. So that's it. Okay, all right, let me find
it. Can I ask you, what is your best guess as to when this impact study will be presented?
Well, the environmental impact assessment will be done when the developer decides that they want to go ahead and get it started. They would then, we can tell them based on the companies available that this is the one we picked, these are the terms of reference, then they go ahead. So there's no set date to do that as yet. Just like as the Honorable Minister was saying, the clause basically says that if we terminate the agreement without cause, then any costs that they have incurred, which there was a feasibility study that was done that they got access to that showed the 5 sites as someone, they had to buy that from the government of Anguilla. They also have other costs that have incurred in terms of marketing costs, consulting costs. So any of these costs that they have incurred or that they have incurred since June 3rd when this was signed, basically that says that if we terminate without cause, that we're responsible for as the government of Anguilla. How much that is, we don't know, and we have not pursued that number because the environmental impact assessment and the social impact assessment And that is included there, that those have to be done and those have to be favorable before they can proceed. I don't know if that explains
All
it.
right, I think I might be able to give you some further clarification. In clause 11.3a, in the middle of the clause, it says, in case of a termination, the government shall reimburse the developer for all costs incurred for the project, and in particular, all costs related to land and material improvements performed, as well as costs for fees and permits incurred prior to the Land Return Act. However, the developer will not be entitled to claim for any damages or consequential damages deriving from such termination. So if you look at the contract, in the termination clause, that's a part of the clause which talks about who is liable in certain circumstances. So when we talk about the financial cost, there could be a financial cost. That is what we're referring to. So in trying to be, because we're weighing all these factors in at the same time, we have to weigh it in because there is the potential. We have to weigh it in because there's a potential.
Can you comment, please, as a second question, on what you know of the developer and his consideration for development of a marina in another location? Yeah.
I just want to preface it by saying that, I wouldn't really want to consider myself young, but I peruse social media, and I've seen the comments for persons who are opposed to the marina in Sand Ground. And a number of persons say, well, why don't you put it elsewhere? Why don't you put it on Scrub? And why don't you put it on Rendezvous or Blowing Point? Because there are 5 different sites that were examined. And it isn't government who chose the site. The developer of the marina chose the site based on the potential for return on investment. So when we had that initial conversation with the developer, I said, not in Sand Ground, take it elsewhere. And they cited their clauses as well as the fact that they have no interest in elsewhere. So, sorry? Ms. El Gabi?
Why did they study towards a different basis? Why did they make feasibility studies of all the 5 other sites? Because there is no land on the
So what happened is that some time ago, some years ago, we all heard that the government of Anguilla was examining the feasibility of developing a marina in Anguilla and got the Social Security Board to fund it to the tune of $200,000? Was it $200,000? $200,000. This, sorry, yeah. No, yeah, it may be your money, but in the definitive agreement, the money has to be reimbursed by the developer once the project goes forward. So your money will be reimbursed in everything. I just want to put that to his point that spoke about his money. Now, Edgewater and Associates was tasked with the responsibility to come up with these sites. So they look at these sites, they examine these sites, they study these sites. And after they determine these 5 sites, they put out, the government of Anguilla seem as if they put out a request for proposal for a developer to choose. Sorry? Oh, well, they did, sorry. I said seem. They put out a request for proposal because we are learning a lot as we go along. They put out a request for proposal for a developer to develop a marina in Anguilla. And they answered, this particular developer answered the call to develop a marina in Anguilla and answered the call to develop the marina in Sand Ground because they thought that Sand Ground was the most attractive site for them and would bring the biggest return on investment. Now, this is not the first marina developer that looked at Sand Ground. We know this. Sand Ground over the years have been seen as an attractive location for Mega Yacht Marina. We can remember back in 2004, some Bob Johnson came forward to the government of Anguilla, the same administration, to move forward with a development of a marina in Sand Ground with a casino in the middle of the Sand Ground pond. I don't know who remembers that, but I remember it vividly. So, sorry? Yeah, so the whole idea of developing a marina and standing ground is not a novel idea. But when it comes down to government of Angola saying to an investor who wants to invest $500 million in a particular area, well, you can't invest here. You invest here, and then the investor have to invest here. That is not so. The investor is not no investor. No investor. It doesn't matter who the investor is investing in Angola because they love us so much. They invest in Angola because they're looking for a return on investment. And we have to understand that regardless of the investment, whether it's a marina or whatever else, we have to understand that. And what we have to do is we have to see as a people how much we can maximize for the social and economic development of our people out of that particular investment. But again, I keep promising myself not to say anything much, but again, I just want to say that this is not a yes or no. And I was speaking to someone recently from Standing Ground, and I said to them, if we want to say no, what we should really be doing is raising money to make the developer go away. And if we are not willing to raise money to make the developer go away, then, but one of the things that we must understand in the social impact assessment, the social impact assessment comes down to you. It comes down to you. It comes down to them coming to each and every one of you and having that conversation. That social impact assessment is going to be very important. So you play a role. You play a role. Us here shouting and carrying on and so forth and so on. I'm not saying you are doing that, but if we are doing that, it's neither here nor there. There's a lot of work still need to be done. Because as the Honorable Minister for Education stated, and she too is a trained lawyer, as she stated, there was a memorandum of understanding that was signed, and I must claim ignorance here. I really didn't know that. Right?
Well, this is the thing.
But that is my question.
Okay, sorry.
That is my question, actually. We gained a copy of the definitive agreement from the Honorable Mayor, but we do not know of any memorandum of understanding, another document. We posted the definitive agreement on our website, the Standing Ground Community website, for people to be able to view. What I would like to know, however, is how these two documents tie together, how they link into each other that makes one so much superior in its output than the other, and what is contained within the other one. Because we have no knowledge of that second document.
Like I said before, I claim ignorance because I really had no knowledge of the memorandum of understanding. But I think the gentleman who spoke of the consultant, he said something that is very important. He said the memorandum of understanding is just an understanding, but the definitive agreement is a different type of agreement. So the memorandum of understanding was a memorandum of understanding. The definitive agreement is more definitive.
Okay, just to put into context for you, when we had the conversation with the developers, they had a slide, and then they quickly moved on to the slide, and I asked, could you go back to that slide? And on that slide, and in that moment is when I saw that there was a MOU signed with the government of Angola in 2019. So that would have been. And then there's a history of the project. I don't have the document. We haven't seen it. But I will say, but this is what I'll say when I'm saying this, right? Having an MOU is a preliminary, that's the preliminary document. That's to say, hey, there's an understanding that something could develop here. A definitive agreement is a contract. So we are dealing with a document. There are parts to the document that we have to look into, which we are looking into, There are parts of the document which you will inform, and these are the discussions that help us discuss what's going to happen moving forward, and that's what we're doing right now.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Bunch. It was just kind of my concern that, I don't think there's anybody in this room that on some level isn't concerned with the whole of Anguilla and the prosperity of it as it moves forward. But obviously the people of Sandy Ground have the most to lose here or gain. In the initial plans, is there any displacement of homes or businesses in Sandy Ground? There's no displacement at all. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Patrick Lynch. My family and I operate a business on Sandy Ground. We're not thrilled. We're opposed to a marina in the Sandy Ground pond. That's not to say we're opposed to an improved marine industry on Anguilla or even in the Sandy Ground area. Captain West at the Sandy Ground meeting punched a lot of holes in the proposal that was made, including, it's been brought up several times tonight, the size of the yachts, the 250-foot yachts, 300-foot yachts. He pointed out they wouldn't even be able to make the corner in the channel, nor would the water be deep enough for them to float. I think he's raised a lot of appropriate concerns, and I hope those are all being looked at. Captain Laurie Gums wrote a paper that's been published online. I believe it was in the Anguillian as well. I would encourage everyone to read that if they haven't. I think he makes some very good points. I don't think a mega yacht marina is appropriate for Anguilla. I think a pleasure yacht marina would be appropriate for Anguilla because it is more of a year-round industry than the mega yacht industry. And I think it can be done in Sandy Ground with little impact to the environment and at a much lower cost. That being said, I have two questions. One quick one, because a lot of dates have been thrown around. The definitive agreement was signed, am I correct, June of 2020? Okay. On the 15th of May, 2020, Governor Tim Foy issued a statement regarding Anguilla's general elections. And I'm going to paraphrase on some of this to save time. Point one, on May 7th, after consultation with the Premier and as set out in Section 63(1) of the Constitution, I issued a proclamation dissolving the 11th Anguilla House of Assembly on the 9th of May. It goes on into Section 2, consistent with the established practices in Section 25(3) of the Constitutions. Ministers remain in charge of their portfolio until they cease to be ministers. They do not cease to be ministers when the House of Assembly is dissolved. They remain in their role and oversee the executive branch of government, separate to the legislative branch. It goes on to say, similarly, Executive Council will continue to meet to oversee the day-to-day business of government, but no major decisions such as new policies, contracts, or board appointments can be taken between the House dissolving and the election. My question he's not here, but I'm sure the Attorney General may have the opportunity to view this. My question to the government is, has the Attorney General been consulted? Are the signatures on the definitive agreement even legal?
I would say this as a matter of fact. This is not the only agreement that was signed post May 15, 2020. There was a number of contractual agreements and contractual liabilities that the government and people of Anguilla incurred post May 15, 2020. and 20. And yes, we have consulted with the Attorney General, and every one of them, although the governor made that proclamation, are legal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Every one of them are legal.
Thank you.
What being legal doesn't mean that it's good practice. It's not good practice to sign contractual agreements post or when an election is called, binding up another government to certain agreements. That's not good practice. But whether or not it's illegal is another matter. So this memorandum of understanding, this definitive agreement was still legally signed, although it wasn't good practice to sign agreements during that period. I don't know if you're understanding what I'm saying. Yeah? Sorry? You don't believe me? If it's not good practice, and not being good practice and not being illegal are two different things.
What's that? Exactly. And there's nothing in the Constitution that prohibits. If the Constitution is the highest law of the land, and I would challenge you to cite me in the Constitution, we are signing an agreement that holds another government to it after the House have been prorogued or dissolved is illegal. And unfortunately, it is not illegal. It is bad practice. It should not occur, but it is not a matter. It's not illegal.
Okay.
But we know this.
Hi. Good evening. Hang on. Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. Hi. Okay, so you said we understand that you're still considering this marina, and you said that the developer will be able to hold you liable for costs that comes after June 3rd. I was wondering if you sent a formal notice to let him know that this is still being discussed, that you don't intend for it to be final, and you asked him to halt any spending before, once you sent the notice, if you asked him to halt any spending, to put a stop to any costs come afterwards. And then I want to recommend that when you're weighing the pros and cons, you also weigh the costs of maintaining a marina and maintaining the environment around the marina, because the developer will not do it. And I was casually just researching the cost of a marina compared to the profits of a marina compared to the cost of maintaining a marina. And I can send you some of the PDFs that I found. Washington did a survey on Southern California marinas, and while they got $5 billion in revenue, it cost them about $8.1 billion to sustain. So it wasn't a profit based on yachts and parking and tickets. I don't know, like someone else mentioned, if the real estate covered any of the costs, but marinas are not that profitable. And I also want to know if you have a plan, an environmental plan, because when tourists come, especially when they park up, from my experience staying in St. Martin part-time, they litter. We know water bottles go into the water. How are we going to protect the water in the fishing industry with yachts parking up? Are we going to allot one area, like one half of the island for fishing, and then the other half for the yachts to travel through and from? Because when boats travel, the environment below is disturbed as well. So you also have to consider the fishing industry, because I know you guys promised the fishing industry that they will thrive. I want you to also consider how you're going to balance both, because one is going to beat the other in the long run. Either fishes will move with the constant disturbance of boats, or you don't have a marina in Sandy Ground. So these are just things that I want you to consider, especially pollution-wise, and also to make sure that there's a halt in any spending so that you can weigh the pros and cons.
That's an excellent set of questions and thoughts, and appreciate that. And, you know, when the young people get involved, we're going to be here for the next 150 years. That's good. No, certainly those things will be addressed in the, you know, you heard Mr. Devon Carty say that the business study, the environmental study, the social, all of those things will be taken into consideration. And in fact, in the feasibility study that was done by Edgewater, which was commissioned before, they would have looked at some of those things, and I think that is why the developer thinks that Sandy Ground is the best place for the business case for them. But those are all things that we get to have a say in. In terms of whether we told them to cease and desist all costs until we are here talking to the people so that we can get your ideas, thoughts, and that will then inform them as to when they'll proceed with the environmental impact and social impact studies. And so, but in anything, there are costs that they have already incurred. I know that because the definitive agreement addresses that they had to pay for the feasibility study that was done, the other costs that they have incurred. And, we, as I said, waiting to see what those studies will show so that we can determine if this is a good plan for the location and for the environment. And certainly, I see you were listening to our campaign. Fishing and agriculture and food security are very important for us, and we certainly, that will be taken into consideration as part of the studies that will be done regarding the Sandy Ground Marina project.
Thank you very much. I served in the House of Assembly for 21 consecutive years, and I've been in several governments. And the lady is correct when she says that a memorandum of agreement is not binding. A memorandum of agreement is subject to the approval of the House of Assembly. So no matter what the government agrees to, the House of Assembly has the capacity to reject it. And I use the example of the former British Prime Minister, Mrs. May, who signed an agreement with the European Union to withdraw Britain from the European Union. And when she took that decision, she had the full and complete support of her cabinet. But when she took it to the House of Commons rejected it because the House of Commons, like our House of Assembly, is superior. She went back to Brussels, came back with an adjusted agreement. She had the full and complete support of her cabinet. Her cabinet took it to the Commons. The Commons rejected it. She went back to Brussels, made more adjustments, came back to Britain, took it to Parliament, and Parliament rejected it. And it led to her eventual resignation. Now let's come to the latest position, because this is where the controversy is. Is the definitive agreement a memorandum of understanding and therefore subject to the approval of the House of Assembly, or is it a contract? Because it says a definitive agreement does not mean it is a contract. And because the Attorney General advises that it is a contract, in a case like this, given the absurdity of the document, given the vagueness of the document, given the fact that the document says that this project is 120 acres consisting of crown lands and private lands, and there's nothing in the document that says that these private landowners have agreed for their lands to become part of this marina project. So how can it be a contract? Where's the binding nature? A contract is made up of terms and agreements that both parties agree to. But the private people who own their lands, they have never agreed to put their lands up to be part of the project. What I would suggest, and I'm not saying this by way of criticism, I'm saying this to enlighten all of us. In a case like this, I'm suggesting that your government should get an independent legal opinion from a Queen's Counsel or a senior counsel, and then publish that legal opinion so that the people of Anguilla in general and the people of Anguilla in particular can see exactly what is going on. You are a doctor. Doctors differ. One doctor might say you're terminally ill with cancer. Another doctor might disagree. Lawyers disagree too. So all I'm suggesting that you should do is get an independent legal opinion from a senior counsel or a Queen's Counsel, and then you take it from there. But this document, given the absurdity of it, given the complexity of it, given the fact that it says that if it considers more private lands to be necessary, that government will have to assist them in acquiring these lands. Not necessarily acquiring them in the sense of compulsory acquisition, although there are clauses in there that suggest that might be the path that government is going down. Now, when I look at these private lands that are supposed to be part of the Marina project, these lands are on the northern side of the pond, and those owners have not agreed for their lands to be part of the Marina project. So how can it be a contract? How can these lands, these private lands, be part of a contract when the private owners have signed no agreement and have not agreed to it?
I thank you, Mr. Beard. What?
Don't answer him. Don't answer him.
That's true. What I would want to just give some further clarification as to is, yes, there is the lawyers do disagree in terms of opinions. But when we are talking about a contractual agreement, if this was to be challenged in a court, most judges will assume that when a government signs a contract, they have the financial resources, the legal resources, and the wherewithal to read documents, to go through them carefully before they sign them. So there is the presumption of capacity. When there's a presumption of capacity when a contract is signed by a government, right? A government who signs a contract is different to a private individual who doesn't know much about contract law, who never had a law degree, who never went to law school, who signs a contract and signs away their life. The judge will say, well, this person had no awareness of the law. This person had no clue about what this could be. So it was unfair. They weren't equally yoked. But a government would be assumed to have the resources, to have the power to look through the contract and say this contract was vetted by the resources of government, the arms of government that had the capacity to do due diligence and to legally go through this contract before it was signed. That's how sorry, not to. I'm not stopping you
please,
from.
go ahead,
I'm not
go
stopping
ahead.
you from saying.
Go ahead,
But that is what would. That's what happens when government sign contracts.
Let's look at it this way. So you are saying, by implication, that if this had been an agreement signed with this said company to develop the Webster Park as a shopping mall, that it would be binding?
With the government of Anguilla?
If the government of Anguilla had signed an agreement to give the Webster Park to some developers to be used as a shopping mall, you're saying it will be legally binding upon your government?
If the government went through the process, went through the due diligence, had the Attorney General go through it, had the Attorney General say, yes, this is binding, this is a document that is, I went through the clauses, yes.
I just want to add something to Mr. Beard. As it relates to memorandums of understanding, there's the only requirement for Parliament to consider in a memorandum of understanding, a memorandum of agreement in Anguilla, is that of anything that has a financial implication, and that is duty-free concessions. Outside of that, there's no requirement for this to go to Parliament.
So, would you be opposed to getting an independent legal opinion?
I wouldn't be opposed.
You would support that?
Yes, of course.
I believe that is the way to go, because I have spoken to lawyers in the West Indies, and I've spoken to 2 lawyers in England, and they're telling me it's rubbish. It's not a contract. It's not a legally binding document. And these are also experienced lawyers. So I am saying, and I would like to hear from the Premier, because the buck stops with him, so to speak, in terms of authority. I don't want to be misunderstood.
The principle of collective responsibility.
Huh?
The principle of collective responsibility.
There was some American president, but let's not get into that. All I'm saying, Dr. Webster, would you be adverse? Would you be adverse to the government getting an independent legal opinion as to whether the definitive agreement is a binding document, is a contract? We have a gentleman who spoke here who's a lawyer. Where's the gentleman? He says it's not binding. There's no definitive opinion, so to speak. So, Mr. Webster, can you commit to us that you will get an independent legal opinion so as to allay our fears at the very least? Because lawyers in Anguilla, lawyers in the West Indies, lawyers in the United Kingdom, lawyers in Canada, many of them do not believe that this is a contract. Because the Attorney General says it's a contract does not mean it is a contract. Let us get an independent legal opinion.
Mr. Beard, I thank you for your input. You know, as the Honorable Minister said, Minister Hughes, that would have financial implications, right? So it would have to be one that would have to be decided that since it has financial implications. I am still of the opinion that we get the environmental impact assessment that is paid for by the developer, where we choose who does the study. And then we see what the implications of it are. You know, whether we have a contract or whether it's an agreement that we can break, the issue right now is what is best for Sandy Ground and best for Anguilla. And so the environmental impact assessment and social impact assessments should be done, and then we can have further discussions.
Good evening once again. Shama once more. Regarding the legality and morality of the timing of the agreement and others like it as mentioned by the Honorable Mr. Hughes, I'd like to take this opportunity to humbly suggest considering an amendment to the Constitution such that we are not at the mercy of our representatives operating in good practice, as that has certainly failed us in this case.
I think we have about 2 more questions.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. And my name is Catherine Gums Orchard. And I'm from Sandy Ground. And I'd just like to go on record, in case the T-shirt is not totally apparent, that I am opposed to a marina in Sandy Ground. While people may say that I haven't seen the EIA, I haven't seen the social impact, there is no getting around the elephant in the room that there will be a huge negative impact while this project is going on and afterwards to the people in Sandy Ground, because Sandy Ground is such a tiny place. And therefore, you really need to be listening to us. And you're asking us, and you're asking Anguilla for their opinion about this marina, but you're asking us to give our opinion, and you're not giving us all the information on which to base our opinion. I agree we have to wait for the environmental impact. I agree that there is going to be the social impact assessment. However, there has been no large effort made to show the people of Anguilla what the project looks like, where the homes will be. I have personally asked a question to the developer's representative, which has not been answered. But the majority of the people in Anguilla and in Sandy Ground, unlike other people in the audience here, we don't have anywhere else to go. You may offer to buy our homes, but we don't want to sell them because they've always been our homes and we have nowhere else to go. Now, I would like you, I agree with you all that this definitive agreement, all of these documents signed, were an unwelcome surprise and an unwelcome parting gift from the previous administration. However, your party, your administration, has campaigned on transparency and being your slogan, change, what is it? Change can't wait. We need you to be the change that you promised us. Okay? We need you to give us all of Anguilla, to give us all the information in order to to understand why. And I'm talking about not just a 46-page agreement that people have to plow through. I'm not talking about just repeating what a developer has told you, which is basically a press release. We need you to give us, publish the information that we all need to see as a small island and as an even smaller village. And in ending, I'd just like to read you one thing. You'll find it very familiar. Yes, Hayden, I'm getting old too with the glasses. And I'd like to remind you of this, please. When you're in your discussions about this project or any project, that what we say and what we believe with all our heart, just as we did at the beginning of this evening. God bless Anguilla, nurture and keep her noble and beauteous. She stands midst the sea. O land of the happy, a haven will make thee, our lives and love we give unto thee, a haven for Anguillians. Now I understand that we're all going through one economic crisis after the other. It's just snowballing on us. But that is no reason for us to cut off our nose, to spite our face, and to sell our birthright when we may have other options, and we need to seriously consider the implications of what we may be getting ourselves into if this particular project goes ahead. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Good night, good night. We agreed to go until 9 o'clock, so I purposely waited until I think the last speaker spoke. For you who don't know me, I'm Merrick Richardson, the elected representative for District 5, which encompasses Sandy Ground. Let me start by saying I take my job as a representative of the Sandy Ground people very seriously.
Thank you.
I do. That means at times I will have to differ from other cabinet members, but I also take my job very seriously as a minister of this government. My official title is Ministerial Assistant in the Ministry of Social Development and Education. And I take my job seriously. I feel the pain of the Sandy Ground people. I truly do. We as a country, we are asking the Sandy Ground people to consider putting a marina practically in their backyard. As a matter of fact, some of them is going to be on their back step. So we do not take the position very, very, very lightly. The Premier has made statements, and he has always said it's going to involve the whole of Anguilla. So we are not cutting off Sandy Ground and saying that Sandy Ground is not part of Anguilla. But he is saying that the whole of Anguilla will be involved in whatever decisions we make. The environmental impact assessment study and the social impact study are very important studies that are going to be needed, that's going to be done, and they need to be done. Because the reality is, even if by some miracle or whatever happens with this marina, if we were to stop it, we need to know what would be the effects, because even if this one is stopped, someone is going to come again. That's just the reality of the situation, and we need to accept that reality. So saying we're going to stop this social impact assessment study and the environmental impact study is not going to stop the next set of persons from coming in. And I truly believe if on June 29th there was a different outcome, your cry would have been different. Your cry would have been, why is all this heavy machinery here in the pond? That would have been your cry. We are here. We are gathering information from you. We are here so that when we do the terms of reference, you would be included. We are here because we said we will be transparent. We are here because we believe that we are representing you, the people. This is not an argument. This is not a confrontation. This is a discussion. And even at times it feels as if we are so far in different parts of the divide. We are all trying to get the same thing, which is the best thing for Sandy Ground and the best thing for Anguilla. And we need to keep that in mind. We're not always going to see eye to eye. Families don't always see eye to eye. We're even different in terms of whether we believe a legal document is a contract or not. And that's a legal document. So take into the fact your feelings, take into the fact your opinions. And we do respect everybody's opinion. Persons from Sandy Ground who have spoken to me know that I have been the one. The definitive agreement that you're reading, on receiving it, I got it on Thursday, and by Saturday I took it to 3 representatives from Sandy Ground so we can start discussing. So we truly believe that we have to have the discussion. We know the feelings of Sandy Ground people. I really, truly, truly do appreciate how the persons in Sandy Ground feel. We are possibly asking you to change your lives forever. And that does not come as an easy task for me. Like I started out by saying, I take my job as the representative of the Sandy Ground people very seriously. And we will do our best, and I truly mean this. And I'm going to put a premier on the spot and says, Mrs. Archer, whatever information we have, we will be making it public as we have done so far. We have hidden nothing. We have been trying to make all the information that we have public, and we will continue to do so. And with that, I say good night and thank you.
It is my humble task to close off the proceedings this evening with a brief vote of thanks. And before I do that, I just want to share a quote with you. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. I think you all will agree that this event this evening provided an opportunity for persons to express their freedom of expression, their opinion. Some persons had their opinions, others had differing opinions. At the end of the day, we have a right to sit and discuss, even if we do not necessarily agree at the end of the day. That is democracy at work. So I really want to thank each and every one of you for coming out this evening. Our chairman, Special Ministerial Assistant in the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Courtney Morton, our Premier, Dr. Ellis Lorenzo Webster, and members of the Cabinet. I want to thank the staff from the Ministry of Finance who set up here this evening. Behind the scenes, they made sure that the venue was properly set up, complete with flags and banner and everything. I want to thank them for their efforts. I want to thank you in particular for coming out. I was quite enthused to see the very strong representation from Sandy Ground with the beautiful T-shirts. And I think if you have a size in my size, I would like to get one too. You know, but it really was a healthy discussion. And I would like to encourage persons, if you continue to have comments, please feel free to share them with us. We are not here to fight with anybody. We are simply here to get the best for Angola. And I think the Premier has been saying that all the time, the best for Angola. So I want to thank all of you, and I wish you a safe journey home to your homes, and all the best in the weeks ahead. Thank you so much.